My name's Mike Garrow. I'm the Vice President of Operations. I have the distinct pleasure of working with a team of people that is responsible for everything from the design and architecture of our AI deployments, all the way through the deployment, the sourcing of all the gear, and eventually the care and feeding and support when we hand it off to customers. To keep the ball rolling, for us, AI deployments has become a challenge of balancing time to market with attention to detail. And I think that's what I spend a lot of my time worrying about. How do we originally design the way we're going to deploy in the data center? How do we deal with things that change during that process and adapt to it? How do we make sure that once we have a design, we have a thorough bill of materials and we can procure and acquire all the gear in the time that we need to acquire the gear? Once it shows up, how do we make sure that we can get it deployed effectively? Because often you've got, parallel work going on, and how do you keep people from stepping on each other's toes when you're trying to do everything as quickly as possible, but as efficiently as possible? Initially, making sure that we've architected it correctly, taking into account not only the technology and the specs of the gear, but also the customer's needs, right? Are we doing everything right to meet what the customer's end needs are? And those needs come in multiple flavors, if you will. It's, okay, they need it in a week. So what can we do to deploy this in a week, but make sure that we're doing it correctly? And so it comes down to planning everything in a lot of detail and figuring out where you can get the best operational efficiencies to make sure that you're checking all the boxes on a technical side, but then you're also paying attention to the time ticking by every day and trying to align those two things together. We have pretty tight SLAs with our clients. There's a lot of things we need to factor into making sure that we have the best possible uptime. Some of it is from a technical perspective and equipment. We have redundancy built in everywhere we can. We try and avoid single points of failure. Other things are more from a planning perspective, where we have a really good spare parts strategy, so that we know when something breaks. Most of the time, we're equipped to be able to quickly bring it back online so that the customer outages are as short as they could possibly be. Looking at the data center locations and what the sources of power are and how green they are is sort of the most basic place you can start. Then it comes to how do you deploy, with each version of GPU that we go to, the power requirements, the heat generation gets greater and greater. And so, technology needs to keep getting more creative to figure out how do you approach that. And so things like direct-to-chip cooling, more efficient ways to do direct-to-chip cooling help a lot with that, how you manage that cooling in the data center. As well, eventually getting to immersion cooling, or even the combination of those two things, direct-to-chip and immersion cooling, is a place that I'm quite sure we'll be getting to before too long, as the needs of this infrastructure to have high power, high heat dealt with continues to evolve. We've embraced a number of them. SOC 2 Type 2 tends to be one of the biggest ones for people in our space. ISO 27001 is another one. PCI compliance is another one. In some cases, if you're dealing with healthcare organizations, you might have HIPAA in the mix. So, again, it's part of understanding what our customers need and making sure that we try and cover all the bases so that we can meet their needs.